Fasten your seatbelts, everybody. There is another change in the California jury that is deciding the fate of Scott Peterson in his double murder trial. Juror number 5 has now been dismissed, replaced with an alternate. Good thing they have several alternates there. Juror number 5 was the foreman, a doctor, a lawyer. He also was known for taking copious notes. The new foreman is juror number 6, who we understand is a mechanic from California, joining us now to talk about the latest developments and how they will affect the outcome of all of this. From San Francisco, former prosecutor Stephen Clark. From Redwood City, criminal defense attorney Ginny Walia, and the host of Big Story Weekend, Rita Cosby. And here in our studio, a very busy man today, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Welcome, one and all. Rita, let me ask you first, because I know you have some information on some of the new face of this jury. What can you tell us?
Well, the new person is alternate number 3. This is a retired man in his 50s or 60s. And, you know, there were a lot of people in this case, so a lot of people wonder how this person got on the jury. This is ironic. This man's future son-in-law, I've been told, is purchasing a restaurant called The Shack, which is a restaurant where Scott and Lacey Peterson used to work with this future son-in-law. And now apparently I think he may have bought this restaurant. So they work together. He knows both Scott and Lacey Peterson, and now bought this restaurant. So there's this restaurant in the family tied to him. I also just got some details, Martha, on the new jury foreman, because remember, the person who was kicked off was the foreman. And in fact, we're just being told in the last few minutes that apparently a couple other jurors passed notes. It sounds like there's some members on this jury that are ratting other members out. I'm told that's why the other one yesterday was kicked off, and I'm told the foreman was kicked off today because he was doing something that other jurors were not happy about, passed notes to the judge. And now this new foreman, who is juror number 6, who's been on this jury, I just got some details. He's apparently I'm told from people who know him that he's a very sort of team player, which could be a good thing for this jury, a very divided jury. Former firefighter, open to evidence, but someone I talked to said he has a girlfriend, likes also to cycle, but may lean defense that he said that he was very open to evidence and interested in both sides, and was also interested quite a bit in what Mark Arago's had to say. So this could be a very good move for the defense.
All right, let's bring the judge in here. You're shaking your head in hearing that this new juror knew both Scott and Lacey.
It's unheard of to have a juror in a murder case that knew both the defendant and the victim. The person would almost inevitably have some conflicted emotions if he knew the decedent and knows the defendant. This is California, and I wasn't there to scrutinize the jury selection, so I don't know how this person
and we're just getting all this, but I think from what Rita said, it's his son-in-law who knew them. It's possible that he didn't know them.
If there's no personal knowledge on his part, that's one degree of separation. Certainly that's acceptable. Normally you want people that have nothing to do with the case, no emotion, no outside avenues of information, which is a problem that we confronted yesterday.
Apparently it's been hard to find people like that.
Right. I have not seen musical chairs like this in a murder case where the defendant's freedom and life are obviously at stake, nor have I seen such secrecy on the part of the judge. We don't know why the lady yesterday was kicked off. We don't know why the foreperson today was kicked off. People will begin to doubt the intellectual honesty of the system without an explanation that makes sense as to what's happening.
Stephen Clark, let me bring you in with regard to this foreman. You know, we've heard quite a bit about him. We know he's a doctor, a lawyer. The judge was telling me before that this was someone that both sides very much wanted to be on this case because they thought he would be fair and analytical. It sounds like he might have just driven everyone crazy with all of his note-taking, and probably that he's an expert in so many of these fields. What do you think?
Well, that's certainly possible, but the fact that an attorney was actually removed from the jury, I think, is very dangerous towards whether this jury is ever going to reach a conclusion. Of anybody that would follow the rules imposed by the court, it would be this foreman. Just not liking somebody really isn't a reason to ask them to leave the jury. Quite frankly, I'm very shocked at what's going on. It almost appears like the show Survivor, where there's two competing factions and they're slowly trying to bump each other off because they're upset about one person getting kicked off and not the other.
It certainly does.
I don't think it speaks well to see this jury going to a conclusion. And I do agree with the judge that knowing somebody that's personally involved with the case would be a challenge for cause, that the judge would remove them from the jury, and having this person that may later have to go and explain to someone that either knew Scott or Lacey, you know, his future son-in-law, that he either voted guilty or not guilty, puts him in a much more difficult position than the average juror who's supposed to be neutral. So that would almost be a challenge for cause, and I'm surprised that person even 1 degree of separation made their way onto the jury.
All right, Ginny, Walia, let me bring you in here as a criminal defense attorney. Is this all good news for the defense that there's so much shuffling going on here?
I think that as a general principle, it may have been good news because the jury was divided. But I'm starting to think that the 2 jurors that were kicked off, they were sort of defense-friendly. I think that there was a split in the decision, and perhaps the foreman and the juror that was kicked off yesterday may have been on the same side, so which may be the defense side. And I agree that it's dangerous to kick off. Not so much a lawyer, but a doctor. They're very good at looking at evidence, and they understand the concept of reasonable doubts very well. Scientific people with scientific backgrounds really hinge the case on what the judge would instruct them rather than their own emotions. So I think that it could be good or bad for the defense.
Rita, back to you for our final moment here in terms of this new juror and his relationship to Scott and Lacey. Just go over this once again for us so everybody understands what the connection is.